Today I'm going to show you 5 hidden features in the edit page in Davinci Resolve that will blow your mind. Let's take a look. The edit page in Davinci Resolve is full of tools that will help you edit like a pro, but some of them are a little harder to find than others. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 things that will help you speed up your workflow and tell better stories. Let's get started. First up, let's look at editing from a bin. This one's easy. Simply go into a bin in your media pool, make the thumbnails as large as they can get, hover over one of the clips and start scrubbing through with your mouse. Press I to set an in point where you want the clip to begin, and then press O to set an out point where you want the clip to end. Now, when you bring that clip into the timeline, instead of getting the entire clip, you'll only get what's between those in and out points. You don't need to bring your footage into the source monitor at all. Just remember that if your clips have audio on them, the audio will come into the timeline too, so if you don't want that, you'll still have to bring the clips into the source monitor before dragging them into the timeline. You can even drag entire sequences into your timeline by doing the in and out points on all of the clips in that sequence, highlighting them all and dragging them in. Pretty cool, right? Moving on, let's check out the edit overlay. This little feature is simple, but give me a sec and I'll show you just how powerful it is. So in a normal workflow, you drag your footage into the source monitor, set in and out points, and then drag the video, audio, or both into the timeline. Or you can set your in and out points and then click one of the items in the toolbar to do things like overwrite, replace, or insert your footage wherever your playhead is. The edit overlay is kind of like a combination between dragging footage onto the timeline and using those icons. Simply set your in and out points in the source monitor, put your playhead wherever you want your clip to go, drag your footage over the playback monitor, and the edit overlay will appear with the same options for inserting your footage into the timeline that are in the toolbar above the timeline. All you have to do is choose which method you want, drag your mouse over that icon, and release the mouse. Now, if you go down to the timeline, you'll see that your clip has been inserted into the timeline in the spot where you place the playhead. Okay, bonus tip time. That's right, I'm giving you a bonus tip in the middle of the video. I'm feeling generous today. You're welcome. Let's say that I'm doing a rough cut of a video and I decide there needs to be a montage between 2 clips that are already in the timeline. I could go clip by clip, bringing them into the source monitor, setting in and out points, and pressing the insert icon in the toolbar, or I can simply head into the bin where all of my montage clips are located, set in and out points on all the clips in the bin, place my playhead where I want my sequence to start, select all of the montage clips in the bin, drag them into the playback monitor, and drop them on the insert icon in the edit overlay. Now, all of the montage clips are in the timeline, ready for you to tweak on your next pass through. And speaking of that next pass through, let's say that my rough cut is done and it's time to dive in and refine the timeline. In order to make that as easy as possible, I'm gonna wanna edit the layout of my edit page first, which just so happens to be really easy in Davinci Resolve. In order to edit my layout, I simply need to hide and unhide different sections of the edit page to streamline the phase of the editing process that I'm in. For example, in the refinement phase, I won't need my source monitor, so I can get rid of that. All of my clips are in the timeline, so I don't need the media pool, and I'll wanna make my playback monitor bigger. Now all I have are my timeline and my playback monitor, and I can start trimming, moving, and doing whatever else I want to these clips. Now, since this is a layout I use all the time, I want to save it. All I have to do is go up to Workspace, Layout Presets, Save Layout as Preset, give the layout a name, and click OK. And now I can go back to this layout whenever I want. If I want to go back to the default layout, I can just go to Workspace, Reset UI Layout. Technically, this feature isn't only available in the edit page, but personally, I think that's where it's most useful. Moving on, let's talk about duration markers, which are particularly useful in the source monitor. Now, this is something that is great if you have multiple sections of a video clip that will be used throughout the duration of a video. I tend to use it a lot for editing interviews that will be intercut with other footage, voiceovers, etc. Since the interview is typically done in one continuous shot, I want to identify each section of the interview so that as I assemble the rough cut, I can easily find the section I want and bring it into the timeline. To set duration markers, we first need to set regular markers. Head up to your source monitor, find the beginning of the segment you're looking for, and hit M on your keyboard to set a marker. To label that marker, just hit M again to open up the dialog box where you can give the marker a name, make any notes, and color code your marker. Now, you can also specify the duration of that marker in the dialog box, but personally, I think it's easier to just hold down Alt and drag the marker to the end of the segment of video that you're trying to save. Now, here's where it gets really cool. If we go into our media pool and change it to list view, you'll see that there's a little drop-down arrow next to the original clip, and when we click that, you'll see that Davinci Resolve has automatically created subclips based on all of our duration markers. So when I get to a point in the video where I need one of those interview segments, I can just find that subclip and drag it into the timeline. Okay, next up is saving custom presets for effects. Davinci Resolve has a ton of built-in effects and transitions, and they're all customizable. So let's say I want to add a cross dissolve in between two clips. That part's easy enough, just drag it in from the effects library, or right-click between two clips and do it from the little pop-up. Now, let's say I want to customize that cross dissolve. All I have to do is select that transition in my timeline, go into my inspector, and change the parameters until I like the way it looks. Now, here's the fun part. If I go into my timeline, right-click on that transition, and select Create Transition Preset, I can give the preset a name, and now if I go into my effects library, my custom transition is now in the user section of video transitions. And for a quick little bonus tip, if I want that custom transition to replace that cross dissolve as my default video transition, I can right-click on the custom transition in the effects library and choose Set as Standard Transition. Now, whenever I go to add a transition with the right-click method, instead of adding a cross dissolve, I'll be adding the transition I just built. Pretty cool, right? These are just a few of the tools available in Davinci Resolve that will help you improve your workflow. If you want to see some more, check out this video right here. And for more tools, tips, and tricks that will help you become a better video editor, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.